You have 10 minutes to pack your things and leave, and I never want to see you in my house again." Catherine's voice cut through the Cleveland house like a blade, her 28-year-old son Ryan freezing mid-step on the staircase as she discovered the empty jewelry box where her grandmother's wedding ring had been stored for safekeeping. The pawn shop receipt crumpled in her trembling hand told the story she'd been dreading but expecting. Ryan had finally crossed the line from borrowing money to stealing family heirlooms to fund his gambling addiction. "You have 10 minutes to pack your things and leave, and I never want to see you in my house again." Catherine's words echoed through rooms where she'd spent 3 years enabling Ryan's destructive behavior, believing that maternal love could somehow cure what professional intervention had failed to address. Ryan's shocked expression revealed his genuine surprise that stealing and pawning a family heirloom would have consequences beyond the usual lectures and temporary restrictions. His assumption that Catherine would eventually forgive this violation, like she'd forgiven the stolen credit cards and emptied savings accounts, showed how completely he'd misunderstood the significance of what he'd taken. The ring represented 4 generations of women in Catherine's family, a symbol of enduring love that had survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and countless family struggles. Ryan had reduced this irreplaceable legacy to $43 in gambling money, treating Catherine's most precious possession as just another asset to liquidate when his addiction demanded feeding. Catherine's decision to finally enforce consequences felt simultaneously overdue and devastating. Mark's attempts to mediate from the kitchen doorway fell flat when Catherine reminded him that 3 years of his patience and understanding had only enabled Ryan to escalate from borrowing to stealing, proving that compassion without boundaries was just another form of enablement. The pawn shop receipt was dated yesterday, meaning Ryan had looked his mother in the eye during dinner while knowing he'd stolen her most treasured possession. The calculated deception revealed how his addiction had transformed him into someone capable of breathtaking cruelty disguised as family entitlement. Ryan's attempts to minimize his theft by claiming he'd intended to buy the ring back after his next win crumbled when Catherine produced bank statements showing 8 months of gambling losses totaling over $15,000. His pattern of escalating bets and desperate attempts to recover losses made his promise to redeem the ring seem laughably unrealistic. The revelation that Ryan had been systematically lying about job interviews while spending his days at the gaming establishment transformed Catherine's disappointment into fury. She'd been supporting his supposed job search with grocery money and gas funds that had actually been financing his gambling binges, making her an unwitting accomplice in his self-destruction. Mark's suggestion that they could retrieve the ring and give Ryan one more chance was met with Catherine's steel, cold refusal to continue the cycle of rescue and relapse that had defined their family dynamic for years. Her realization that their help had become enablement and their love had been weaponized against their own financial security marked the end of her willingness to prioritize Ryan's comfort over their family's survival. Emma's tearful plea to consider Ryan's mental health was countered by Catherine's reminder that enabling addiction wasn't helping Ryan's mental health, it was prolonging his suffering while destroying everyone else's well-being. The family's resources had been depleted, their stress levels had become unbearable, and their younger daughter had been neglected while they focused obsessively on Ryan's latest crisis. Ryan's final manipulation attempt involved threats of homelessness and self-harm, emotional blackmail that had controlled family decisions for years. But Catherine had finally learned to recognize the difference between genuine mental health crises and manipulative behavior designed to avoid consequences, and she refused to be held hostage by threats that prioritized Ryan's addiction over everyone else's safety. When Ryan realized his usual tactics weren't working, his mask of victimhood slipped to reveal anger at his family's refusal to continue subsidizing his gambling, proving that his primary concern was maintaining access to their resources rather than rebuilding relationships or addressing his addiction. Ryan's departure was swift and bitter, his final words blaming Catherine for abandoning family, while ignoring how his theft had violated every principle of family loyalty and trust. His inability to acknowledge the pain he'd caused while demanding continued support revealed how completely his addiction had replaced his capacity for genuine relationship or accountability. Catherine's strength in maintaining her boundary despite Mark and Emma's emotional pressure proved that she'd finally learned the difference between helping and enabling, between love and codependence. Her refusal to negotiate with someone who had stolen irreplaceable family treasures established a precedent that addiction would no longer be allowed to terrorize their household. The week following Ryan's eviction brought unexpected peace to the Cleveland house, with family dinners resuming without the tension of monitoring Ryan's mood or walking on eggshells around his latest scheme. Emma's initial resentment toward Catherine gradually transformed into understanding as she experienced life without the constant chaos of managing Ryan's crises. Mark's discovery that Ryan had been forging his signature on loan applications revealed additional financial crimes that validated Catherine's decision to involve legal authorities rather than continuing the family's pattern of private damage control. The criminal charges that followed sent a clear message that love didn't provide immunity from consequences for illegal behavior. 6 months later, Catherine received word that Ryan had entered a court-mandated treatment program after his gambling addiction led to more serious criminal charges. His recovery would be his own responsibility, without family resources to cushion the consequences of his choices or enable him to avoid the full weight of rebuilding his life through honest effort. The grandmother's ring was never recovered, but Catherine had saved her family from years of additional financial and emotional devastation by finally choosing boundaries over enablement. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent could do was refuse to provide the resources that allowed destructive behavior to continue, even when that meant watching their child face consequences that caused genuine suffering. Ryan's 10 minutes to pack had marked the end of his childhood assumption that family love meant unlimited tolerance for betrayal and theft, beginning his adult journey toward either recovery or further consequences that his family would no longer absorb.